to Creative Chronicles on WJZZ Cool TV, also a Mediterranean Fire production. We're so happy that you're joining us today. We have a very special episode with Philippe Frank, which was rescheduled from a couple weeks ago. And Philippe Frank is a musician, an artist, a founder, a writer, a curator. He has a many leveled experience that enabled him to build what he's built today. And he is opening the doors for hundreds of maybe more than hundreds of artists in different countries. And today we're here to talk about more artistic directions. If we have also another program with Philippe where he talks about his organizational work with his festivals and his programs. And today we're going to kind of go into the more lucid side of things. Thank you so much, Philippe, for taking time out to
Thank you.
join us from Belgium, right?
Yes, Belgium, Wallonia.
Yes. So in all of these, in all of this work that you've done, I what from the artistic work that you have done personally, which one affected you the most, or which one came from something like the most like you know
The
inner
heart,
thing?
the guts.
Yeah, just some,
Well,
yeah.
of course. Well, I had the opportunity to work with many poets, choreographers, filmmakers, visual artists, and of course, other sound artists and musicians worldwide. But I must say that I was deeply, I think, affected by my good old friend Ira Cohen, the late New York uh, poet, citizen of the world, filmmaker, underground filmmaker in the 60s, also wonderful photographer. He did really nice minor pictures with famous people like Jimi Hendrix or Spirit, but also a traveler. And I was deeply, I think, touched, moved by his poetry, which is somehow a post-beat style poetry, and of course his photos. And we have the chance to work together for not only for a book I translate in French called Minbad Sinbad
Mhm.
experience called and with a long interview with his friend Paul Bowles,
Mhm.
but also for choreography by an Indian French choreographer called Nadine Ganaz. It was in '96. It was called Crossing the Border. That's
Mhm.
already a good title, I guess, for you, for me, and for Ira Cohen, and for all transcultural travelers. And
Mhm.
so, in this Crossing the Borders show, we mix live poetry read by him on stage, the music I made, and also India, Belgium, Portugal. So
Mhm.
interdisciplinary experience, and I made a lot of things with him, exhibitions too. He was there as part of the very first event of my organization, Trans Cultures, the Center of Digital and Sound Cultures in Belgium. It
Mhm.
was called Akashiken. I found here the first brochure of trans culture in '96, and this notion of akashic, meaning from the Sanskrit akash, towards the shining
Mhm.
sky speech, the hidden meaning, psychic keep, the unwritten history of mankind, past, present, and future, the universal radio, the subliminal cassette, the cloud doctrine, etc., were really important to me, I think. And
Mhm.
and guided somehow the philosophy of my artistic intermedia practice.
In what way? In what way?
In the way to search for meanings beyond appearances and also within appearances, meaning, this cloud doctrine, this subliminal radio can be everywhere within us too.
How did this
And
was it being in the presence of Ira Cohen as he was writing? Because I remember joining a little event in Prague, uh,
mhm.
where
You
there
were part of it, yeah. It
was,
was with the Sub Rosa label in Brussels. It was a tour I organized in Prague with Ira Cohen, yes, and other great musicians such as David Shea.
yeah, I recall that Ira Cohen, the first time I met him with you was, and he would be writing 24 hours a day. So and he'd be sitting and having lunch, but he would also be writing, and it would just be, what would is this what did his voice kind of take you to this
Of
eyes of
course, he had a marvelous, deep voice of a wise man. He was not that wise in real life. He was a bit mad, but really essential in an essential way to me. And yes, I remember him, of course, reading his wonderful poems such as "Song to Nothing."
Mhm,
I remember the end of Song to Nothing saying, "Oh, let it happen this year to discover the shape of beauty in everything extreme. For sure, surely we will die tonight, whether we will or whether we dream. Oh, Samuel, forgive the dreamer, forgive the dream. The Song of Nothing is your lullaby."
mhm,
So to me, this Song of Nothing was everything.
mhm. Yes. I am now locating a file of Ira Cohen so we can play it for the public. And how did that affect your artwork? How did it change the way you do things?
Well, our meeting was actually quite natural. I was also a cultural critic at the time, and still is, and I interviewed him in Brussels. It was supposed to last 1 hour, then it lasted the whole day
Uh-huh.
in many cafes in Brussels, and then he invited me to New York to stay at his place too.
Mhm,
And so I had him, Alan
mhm,
Ginsberg, Gregory Corso, The Living Fear, and
mhm,
of course the teachings of all those important people and many others. Also Hakim Bey with the semiotext house of printing. He was writing as a very important book for me, temporary autonomous zone at the time, and I met Ira too.
mhm.
So all those,
With him by
and
phone.
must, excuse me,
I
you were
spoke with
saying?
him by phone. I spoke with him from Lebanon. I can't remember
You mean
why.
Ira or Peter Lambon Wilson,
Yeah.
aka Hakim Bey? Yeah, Peter. Well, he's intellectual. His book on Oriental deviant philosophies or artists are,
Mhm,
of course, very important. And the book task was among the underground generation, people, even of the web generation, thinks as this book as an introduction to the web exchange culture ideology of that time. Of course, it has changed since,
yeah.
but he didn't know that Peter didn't even touch the
I'm sorry, Peter didn't touch the what?
that I think Peter wasn't into the internet, I think, practice at the time, but somehow
Oh, was
he had a vision. He had a vision of of the web culture,
mhm,
and he made some. he made some connections with the pirate utopias that he talked about in another really nice book called Pirate Utopia, and
Mhm.
he made also the connection with his temporary autonomous ID,
Yeah.
which is for him impossible to describe, but could be like a free party, could be a Taz, or
Mhm.
a pirate island for the best could be a Taz too. Of
Mhm.
course, it never lasts, but we are all working for a permanent autonomous zone.
Yeah.
And in my curator activities for example, the festival, Sound Art Festival City Sonic, for
Mhm.
me, I try to invite people to a sonic Taz in a
Yeah.
city full of installations with a sound itinerary in a different city for each festival.
Hey, when
And
you say a Taz, I like to slow it down so that people can grasp what's being said.
yes,
Temporary, autonomous
zone,
zone. So, like
yes,
each city location where you have installed an artwork that is sonic and not
yeah,
necessarily music. It's a sound arts. It's very conceptual. Sometimes
yeah,
the people involved are artists, but also scientists. Sometimes they're working with immigrants. Sometimes
yes,
they're just all different kinds of artists, and you use
hmm,
entire city and you install these sound installations in different places, and each one is
hmm,
like temporary autonomous zone. So you think
yeah,
that the work of Peter Lamborn Wilson, Hakim Bey,
yeah.
actually guided you in the spirit of the festival and the work that you do?
Yeah, and more generally with my organization to end sculptures and also my personal artistic
Mhm.
uh, research. I mean, in this essay, Hakim Bey describes the socio-political tactic of creating temporary spaces that elude formal structures of control,
Mhm.
and this society of control, which was announced decades ago by William Burroughs,
Mhm.
but also Gilles Deleuze, the famous French philosopher, which I was also very impressed by his book called A Thousand Plateaux, and
Mhm.
other books he made, and his philosophy and the rhizome thing, and the whole Deleuze philosophy was very important to me. And but it has something to do with this um autonomous zone that we are searching to establish, even for a moment, with a festival, with an event which is conceived not like a big mushroom, like a spectacle, entertaining show coming
So
with flashes of light everywhere,
mhm.
and uh, and and rock and roll, etc. But more experimental zone, also with convivial, friendly attitude. I think the more experimental it is, the more friendly we have to be towards possible audiences, which are not audiences. They listen to the installation because they pass by the street on the city,
Yeah.
and they can encounter different form of art, and we try to integrate the citizens in our installations, in our project, not
Yeah.
only with City Sonic Festival, but with Transcultures.
We talked about that last time, the how you integrate the passerbys into the sonic installation artwork.
City Sonic, yeah, yeah.
Can we get more into detail? Like, can you I don't know, take one where it really implicates the people and they come out of it in a very different state than they arrived. So they're just walking down the street and suddenly they hear sounds, they see something, they see a crowd, and then they go into that space. Would you?
Yeah, of course, there are very various aesthetics within City Sonics, because I open all the doors of the sound arts, which are very varied now, and diverse practices too. Um, well, Of course, there are also geolocative itinerary with digital technologies, but
Mhm.
on I like also very low tech project. For example, I remember last edition of City Sonic in the campus in the university city of Louvain-la-Neuve near Brussels. They
Could you repeat the last phrases? I
Uh,
think the
uh, I think in the last edition of City Sonic Festival, it was in Louvain-la-Neuve,
Mhm.
which is a famous university in Belgium. It's also a city, and we worked in 15 locations in this city, 15 different locations, and also between those locations with itineraries among itinerary.
Yes.
And there was one I remember by a Portuguese artist called Natalia de Melo.
Spoke
And
about what this time about
excuse me.
immigrants, right?
Yeah, it was about actually it was a center hosting immigrants and from different from Africa, from the Eastern world, and helping them to integrate the university and not only to have a home but also to have a job and to study there. And so she worked with them on the music they were listening to. They were singing during their traveling, during the traveling to Europe too.
Mhm.
So what was left of those of this sound culture from their city, from their original countries, and she was working. She was working too with the dances. They were dancing dances from their country, traditional dances, and she worked on the steps. Also videotaping.
Oh, because we have a lot of like some people could confound it. So you're not talking about like a it's not like a folkloric piece or
No,
festival.
no, no.
Very contemporary.
Yeah. She's a contemporary visual artist, also doing sound,
So how
and
does it
she
get from the how does it get from the folklore of each country to a contemporary piece? What?
well, she because she does some her own composition as an installation,
Okay.
both video installation and sound installation, with some very small loudspeakers in the center where they live,
Mhm.
and in this center they can listen to themselves like a polyphonic installation,
Okay.
mixing all those
Right.
bits of singing of dances, and
All at all at the same
and it makes like a cinema for the ears
time.
of what's left of their tradition, sonic tradition and dancing tradition here in Belgium in this university town.
You are listening and watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Give us a comment, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV. I'm your host, Biba Chic, and we are on Creative Chronicles, produced by Mediterranean Fire. And our guest today, if you just joined us, is Philippe Frank from Belgium, the founder and director of Trans Cultures Foundation for Digital and Sonic Cultures, and Pépinière de Création in Paris, which is like a stomping ground for young artists to be able to spread their wings and get out into the field. We're talking about their festival called City Sonic right now. Um, and so, Philippe, talk to us about you must be, it's different for you because like you're half organizer and half artist. Was it very clear to you from the beginning? Like from the very beginning, you set out to study art history and
Yes,
to be
and
a
musicology. Yeah, in
musicology.
in Belgium, and then I study social communication and semiology. So it was already a bit hybrid, and I started singing actually in a church when I was a child, and I was singing in a choir in
Oh,
the Cathedral of Liège. So I had this classical Catholic background, and then I stopped that, and because I thought I didn't earn enough money at the time. It was a bit crazy, but and then later on, when I was a teenager, uh, I got back to music, but at this time it was the punk years. So for me, the punk movement, the new wave movement, post wave movement, opened the door to a very much more freer idea of the practice of music, and I like this raw energy too, and this mix also with somehow the Dada art and the Fluxus art. And I was an art history, studying art history at the time too. So I made my first group with my brother Fabrice, who was also a researcher in biology and still is. And he was playing guitar, I was singing, and then I learned to play a little bit of guitar and the first sampler and computer programs, and that's how it started.
mm-hmm. And now you're, if I'm not mistaken, you're very dedicated to ambiental music. So,
Yes, because actually, after being part of some rock bands or adventures post rock, and many collaboration in the 90s, I started my solo project Paradise Now,
mhm,
and the name is from the famous Living Theater play. And after I met them in New York through Ira Cohen,
uh-huh,
and actually this project it's also a collaborative project, and then I got to work with electronic musicians, not only choreographers, filmmakers, and so on, but also different types of music, free jazz musicians too. And even if I'm not good at playing any instrument, I can compose, I think, and
mhm,
I can build textures and sonic architectures. And so this idea of sound art was very important to me, because again it opens the door beyond music,
mhm,
beyond somehow a classical idea of the art of time, which should be music. For me, music is also the art of space with sound art.
mhm,
And when I said art of space, it means also spatialization of the sound, and so it opens many researches with electronic with or the electronic device, but not only. I also play guitar, bass. I sing too, and
mhm,
for me, this was uh, in a way uh, very important to me. This idea of sound art, not only as a curator
mhm,
with City Sonic since 2003, but also as a listener of and lover of music and sound,
mhm,
because it opens somehow my own cage
mhm,
of repressed musician, and then I mix that also with sound poetry, with many kind of sound art.
mhm. Yes. We're going to listen to a piece by Philippe Frank. By the way, while I'm setting this up, I'd like to thank you so much for having, you also changed my life when I was allowed to come to New York while you were there with a couple of people, and that I was able to meet Ira Cohen and be in his presence. I also met the Living Theater. I went to,
Yes, Judith, Malina, remember? Yeah,
and I did a project with them also in Lebanon, and it was a very intense project. It was on the
a
ground
great project. Yeah.
of the
Mhm.
ex-torture prison from the liberated South. So it was like the people who had been in a torture prison for 17 years, like we're talking electricity and real torture, were liberated and released, and just like a couple months after that, the prison was still, you could still go and see how each cell looked, and everything remaining from that horrid experience. It was occupied by Israel, and we did performance that they prepared with Lebanese actors on the grounds of that torture prison in that village for those people of that village who had to endure all of that tremendous suffering for so many years.
Hmm.
Here we go. I'm going to play. I'm looking for the Soul Migration Ceremony original version, which I know where to find it. It's going to be right over
Oh
here.
yeah, I like this project not only because you're part of it and you are the voice of this project with your writing called the Akashic Diaries. We're talking about the meaning of Akashic previously,
Mhm,
but also because it's as I said, I'm very fond of working with the voices of poets, writers, and performers,
mhm,
and I really like your voice, not only reading voice but singing voice too.
mhm,
And I also think it's very important to support such transcultural, involved, and unclassified vision of the world, because we live in a very troubled, chaotic time. All those writings, the Akashic Diaries, were made during the first lockdown. It was part of a series we launched called No Lockdown Art.
mhm,
It was a proposal for international artists to 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 make creations about this very specific, unique context, and we are not. We are still somehow part of this very chaotic viral world.
mhm,
And so I made the music with my friend Didier Nietzsche, aka Olymp, also a very interesting musician, also acting in playing in many avant-garde projects, also uh, on Second Life clubs, avant-garde clubs, interesting metaverse activities. And so we made this. It's one of the piece we made with your text, from
mhm,
your text.
mhm. The Soul Migration
The
Ceremony.
Soul Migration Ceremony. What a title.
I'm going to play it right now. Play. You start moving your arms. They're dancing above your head, and your hands become the animal horns. Your body becomes a goat, very spiritually dancing into your transformation. Half animal, half human, embracing the light. You are as a clay in your own hands, sculpted by your breath and words. Your arms and upper body become a bird in flight towards a vibration calling from a higher frequency through parabolic waves. Your soul, mummified inside of your spirit, has risen from your body to fly to where the ethereal curtains, from where behind the truth resides. You are the delegate of a mission, the soul
migration ceremony begins by saying, charcoal, ashes, moribund flames, this weakness in the abysmal that lies between my breath and my voice. The soul has won, the internal rain has washed, has put out the origins of the pain, and the soul wants to speak.
And the soul wants to speak.
Mhm.
That's a very good invitation.
Mhm.
And it reminds me of another experience we made together, the Book of the Dead. It was from a play you made in Beirut from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and I made the music for that.
Yes,
It was also.
it was, because the Egyptian Book of the Dead is, it starts, it's based on their king Osiris, but Osiris, I don't, he in the prayers of the Book of the Dead, he is sitting there, he is sitting, and it's like he's dead. He's discovered, like someone walks in and discovers that he has died, and then the whole play is a series of ceremonies of this discovering that he's dead, and then a bunch of, I don't know, acts and movements that outline the different stages that a person goes through, and what the Egyptians thought was happening after death. They used to dress up in leopard skins, and those were the priests who would conduct the prayers. And then they believed that the double, the Ka, would leave the body, and then the body would have to be mummified and preserved because that Ka could go back to the body, and they had to serve it food, every day for, I don't know if it was a certain amount of time or how long, but then the spirit itself would then start taking a journey in the out of life, and there were different levels in the out of life. And one of those levels was also there was the danger of the soul annihilating monster. That's what it's called in the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so there are a bunch of prayers that the living people have to say in order so that the soul not be devoured by the soul annihilating monsters. And then they get to the highest level after in the out of life, which is the Hall of Double Truth, and
Mhm.
to the final one is the Fields of Wheat.
That reminds me also of this book by William Burroughs called The Western Lands. Actually, that's. Uh, I read this book when I was in New York, and before I met him in a gallery via Ira Cohen, and I listened to the album that Bill Laswell, the famous musician and producer,
Mhm.
made with his band, material from the Western Lands book with William Burroughs' voice, incredible voice. And this book's title comes from the Egyptian mythology about the afterlife. Supposedly beyond the land of the dead lies a heavenly Elysium, the Western Lands.
Mhm.
And what you were talking about with the Book of the Dead, and even in your recent text, this piece we listened to, the Soul of Migration,
Mhm.
I think there's a link, you know,
Yeah, I think the reason
timeless.
you talked about also William Burroughs, Hakeem Bey with the temporary autonomous zone, and the Beat Generation, and Paul Bowles inspired me
Mhm,
the most. And then, on certain levels, but they allowed me to go ahead and express what I wanted, related to these kind of realms, which if you don't find the right crowd and the right understanding people, especially when you're young, to mentor you, you would probably
Mhm.
want to do it and do something, more realistic, or, so, but if someone would have asked me what my goal was, which they did when I was like in my 20s, what is your goal? What is your whole concept and goal? What are you trying to achieve? Like, and I would take that like in the extreme sense of, in the power of the absolute of my existence, and my answer was to bring back the dead so that they can tell us what life is, because they're the only ones who know, and that they should be the actors in the theater. And
But
yes,
don't you think that we are, in a way, we are already dead, and the real living person are the dead. We cannot hear.
maybe, yes. I hesitate to be too sure about anything, but yes, like I I would go towards that death is awakening. You have awoken. If you have died, you have awoken, and you have awoken greatly. And I think there's some ancient sayings about that also, like the lantern has been lit.
Hmm.
And you
But
you
but one thing is for sure: there are too many zombies around.
Mhm.
in this in this wide world,
What
global world.
do you mean zombies?
Well, I think when I'm on the street, I look at people sometimes as zombies. I don't think they are alive, and I don't think they have the wisdom of the dead too.
I
They are just
remember
that.
being coming to Belgium also, and getting into the scenes that were there. I remember walking down the street with Danielle Mongeon. That
Yeah, aka Hansard Gretzel, another incredible artist, video maker. I had the chance to work closely with him.
Yeah, and we were talking about, most of it was that people who were biologically dead and walking. I think that was the basic. That was the,
Well, I think he also had Daniel has also had this vision of people already dead actually, and the dead was for him maybe more important. Of course, he was as a video artist very much impressed by the work of William Burroughs, Philip K. Dick, as also the industrial music band like Psychic TV, Forbling Crystal, Coil. And I had a chance to work with him till he died too soon in 2000 from AIDS. And we made a lot of video, audiovisual work together, and one with you called Biban on Biba, which made the link between you in Beirut at the time and what was happening in the
Texas.
in Germany with the reunification of Germany at the time.
Yes, it
It was
was.
also a good experience.
Yeah, Berlin and Beirut, two divided cities.
Yes.
Communism ended, the Lebanese civil war ended, traveling between both cities that were both under reconstruction
Yeah,
after
yeah.
the time of
So,
war.
so I guess in my work, and maybe in your work too, and other people we like and collaborators, this idea of fragmentation, division, reunification, this dialectic of
Destruct-
being separated from the center and being
I didn't hear the last two phrases.
so much.
Hmm.
I said that maybe in philosophy in my work, and I don't think about it every day. But as we were saying that this idea of working between fragmentations and reunification, decenter, recenter, uh, territorialize, deterritorialize, like Gilles said, and temporary autonomous zone, permanent zone, autonomous zone. So society of control, anti-control, all those dialectics are somehow some energy, bipolar energies we work with.
Uh-huh.
You in your text, maybe me in my music or intermedia collaborations.
Mhm.
and the artists we like also work in this bipolar zone, interzone, as Burroughs would have said. Yeah.
Yes. Let me see. Who is Christophe Bayot?
Bayot. Christophe Bayot is a French musician and also a visual artist, very talented. He lived in Belgium too, and we had a band. We have a band, a duet together called Pastoral. It seems crazy because Pastoral, it's like coming from the countryside, you know. It's also the name of a Beethoven piece, and I don't like Beethoven personally. But anyway, I prefer Monteverdi or Ligeti. But with Christophe, we have this project of mixing electronic music, but also post songs, post rock elements, and we made videos together with a ping pong method. You know, we send files to each other, and we sometimes, of course, we play together. We also he made photos, and I made fragments of poems with the photos as poetic captions. So we have this multidisciplinary project called Pastoral, and it's still going on, and it's a very deep and light at the same time project, a collaboration I like.
Okay, I'm gonna play the piece with Philippe Frank and Christophe Bayot.
Okay, I think it's called 77 Affairs, but I don't know what affairs it relates to.
Here we go.
Coming. Silence is also music. Remember John Cage, my favorite music.
Wait a second. There is an orchestra of a million instruments in the silence. The word just came through a word towards the end of that, and it was soul worlds there. um, so
And valleys of sounds. I think it's like the way we work with Christophe Bayot. It's actually hybrid soundscapes. You know, this notion of soundscape, which is a sound
let
that
me
forms the.
let me do the station ID. Let me do the station ID, and then let's talk about those hybrid landscapes, sonic landscapes.
Soundscapes. Yeah.
You are watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Give us a comment, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching WJZZ. I'm your host, Biba Chic, on Creative Chronicles by Mediterranean Fire, with Philippe Frank joining us from Belgium. We're talking now about sonic soundscapes, not landscapes, in soundscape. Yeah, let's talk about that, because I was actually flashing on that, because I know that most people, especially the ones who are rooted in musical, history and background of rhythm and blues and beautiful, beautiful, amazing music. This is something very different. This is ambiental music, and so it's really like it's just turning this on in a space, and just it's not
Yeah.
you know I don't know, it's almost like it becomes part of the space, more part of the space than related
It's
to any kind of.
yeah, it's really a geography of sounds. And talking about this notion of soundscape, which was invented in 1977 by composer and Canadian ecologist Murray Schafer, which
What was the name again? I'm sorry.
ago.
What was the
Excuse
name again? What was the
M-
name of the
M- Murray Schafer. Murray Schafer. He's a famous Canadian composer and
Murray?
Murray
Mhm.
Schafer, an ecologist, and he invented somehow this idea of sound ecology. He wrote famous book about it, and this idea of a soundscape as a sound or combination of sounds that forms or arises from an immersive environment,
Well,
because
that's
you were talking.
fire
Im-
too, can't it?
yeah, immersive environment is very important in sound art, and it's but here it's not really sound art we were listening to. It's more, as you said, a mix of ambient, electronic, hybrid music. I also play bass line on this piece. So
Mhm.
it's but to me it's open vision of soundscape. Not really from the Murray Chaffer definition, but from the heritage of this vision.
Yes, and when you work with these people, you guys, do you begin with a concept, like a very clear concept, or is it
No,
just a sense
no, no.
of
We work with these sounds as textures.
Mhm,
So we sculpt somehow. It's a sculpture of sounds,
mhm.
and with Christophe we work a lot with layers of sounds, and then we try to make some architecture with that. Not only to be horizontal all the time, because it can be quite boring with many ambient electronic music. You know, you have the crescendo, the same thing again. Here you have really something more organic, I think, and various geographies of sounds
And you
up
have
and down, and at the end you even have a classical sequence,
yeah,
which Christophe did, which is funny, I think.
and
Yeah,
you have a record label called Transonic,
Sonic. Yeah.
and where can people find? Because we only have a couple minutes left, so why don't you tell people where they can?
Well, they can. This is, for example, a compilation of City Sonic, the latest edition, with many sound artists on the Transonic. Just transonic.be or transcultures.be. You found Transonic. We have a Bandcamp also with Transonic sessions. We have CDs, we have vinyls, cassettes even, and it's a label dedicated to sound art, sound poetry, and adventurous sounds.
And I'm on it too. And guess what? Philippe Frank and Pépinière de Création proposed to me a future project just recently, which is to write another probably book. And I think
Yeah,
it's going to be related to Detroit. And I think
yeah,
I'm to unearth and speak with a lot of people related to the music scenes
yeah,
here and
yeah.
see the ones living and what they've gone through and build create something out of that. Very
Yeah,
cool.
that's the kind of commission work that we really like with Transculture, Transonic, and also European Pepinian, because it really comes from the context, but it's a certain alternative, I would say, vision of
Mhm.
this context, and not only dystopia, but also what can be a possible utopia from this. How can we find light again in these dark times? And I think that your writing and your experience also as a performer, as an artist, is really interesting in that context.
And you know what, Philippe, I'm going to introduce you to some people after we're going to have a little mini party. So I'm going to have you hang around to meet the great
Great,
people in this studio in Detroit. And
great.
what? Okay, I want to play a game with you
Yeah,
for the final thing. I'm going to say a phrase, and you're going to build a soundscape or whatever you do within you. You're going to tell us what visions you're seeing when I say the word. Okay? This is how
yes.
we get there. Let's say, where are you? Okay, here it is, right?
Blind test.
One, two, three. Let me find the right one for you. Which one will it be? Which one will it be? Oh, I think I got it. Wait a minute. Visions of one's own life that could be coming to an end.
What am I supposed to do with
You're supposed
that?
to create something.
Oh, but I don't have instruments with me. But well, I have a bass, but it's not.
You're a writer, you're a visionary, so it's a vision. You have to, as though there's a person who's vision impaired and you're describing a vision to them. And you can
Well, I can maybe relate to that this vision you were talking about with
about the
with what is written in this City Sonic compilation CD
Mhm.
to and somehow it summarized also a certain vision of artistic nomadism and also some art.
Mhm.
To listen, to hear territory by walking it, by pacing it, to share audio kinesthetic experiences, auricular sociabilities, to bring out collective sensitivities, landscapes, audio sociability,
Mhm.
to summon aesthetic, ecosophical, political, ethical gestures, put our listening in the heart of our sensitive experience, a mix of soundscapes in perpetual reconstruction, to participate in an involved research. You
Oh,
like that?
yes, I like it. Bravo, I love it.
So we can relate to that. We can relate to that vision you were talking about.
Mhm.
And I guess it's not only about sound or art; it's also about a certain idea of life and light and energy.
Yes, and I think that will be a great way to wrap up this session of Creative Chronicles and Mediterranean Fire on WJZZ Cool TV. Thank you for tuning in and have a blessed day and night.
Thank you, Biba. Merci beaucoup.
Wait a sec, stick around because you're going to have a big surprise.
Okay, all right. I like big surprise,
Okay,
even small surprise.
medium. I have a gift for you, by the way. How am I?
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.